People that are in the poverty mindset or in a scarcity mindset think only about price. They're overly price conscious. But look, I would never get on an airplane where they said, we have the lowest price tickets on this airplane, simply because we've cut maintenance out and we found the cheapest parts to build it. I don't care how low the price is. The cost is too high, because I would feel that first bit of turbulence. I'd be like, is the wing going to fall off right now? Are we going to make it, right? I'm already sketching up that we're 30,000 feet in the air, let alone if I knew that they did it by scrimping and cutting back. Just to review to a certain degree what we've covered up until this point. The 5-step wealth architecture, or the 5 P's to a great wealth architecture. Perspective. We've been talking about perspective throughout the event. Abundance versus scarcity is what it really comes down to. A producer paradigm where you create more value in the world than you take from it, versus a consumer condition where someone always seeks to take more than they give. That's the first and most important part of perspective. Then it's opening up the vision and saying, what is it that I truly want in this world? What is it I'm truly capable of? And if money wasn't an obstacle, or if money was of no issue because I had an unlimited checking account, what would I do with my life day to day? If someone's like, oh, well, I would go do this to make more money. I'm like, remember, you have an unlimited checking account. What would you choose to do on a day-to-day basis? You know, what is it that really kind of revs you up? Now, what I want to warn you about is we can go to any street corner and throw a rock and we would hit someone talking about passion. Passion alone is not enough. Passion alone is not enough. I've found people get very passionately, eventually angry and bitter because they thought, I'm really passionate about X, Y, and Z, but not enough of the marketplace is. So go out there and try to create something and force it upon the marketplace, and it wasn't the right timing. Or they're so passionate they just give everything away all the time without ever monetizing or getting something back. So passion alone is not enough. It needs to also have purpose, focus, and value to the marketplace. Okay, so that's perspective. Then purpose is narrowing down that abundant perspective to say, what will you actually spend your time doing? What are you going to say no to? What are you going to say yes to? Then you build the plan. We've gone through financial health assessments, healthy financial baselines, so that you can start to build what your plan is, know what's handled or not handled, and know what those checklists are. So you know you have a wealth capture account. So you know about an asset protection trust, or you know what an estate plan is, and knowing, okay, once I have this handled, once my foundation and safety is handled, I don't have to worry about diversifying. Now I can focus on an area of growth that's consistent with my investor DNA, and that's what we're going to be decoding here in just a minute, is investor DNA. Then you bring in the professionals. Steve Jobs had something that he came out with called The Lost Interview. It was after he died. The guy that interviewed him found it on a VHS in a storage shed, because originally it was just a 3-minute clip for the technologies of the titans of technology. And so in this interview, he's asking Steve like what the biggest advantage was, or why Apple got as big as they did. And he said, you know what? People thought we had thousands of people working on the Macintosh team. The reality is we could feed them off of 2 pizzas. He said by having A-teamers, we had a 50-1 or 100-1 return or advantage. IBM called this the 5,200% principle. The difference between an A-teamer in your life and a B-teamer was 5,200% more production, but it wasn't 5,200% more cost. We have to understand value-based spending, that there's price, there's value, and there's cost. There's things that can have equal price, but a lot more value. Here's an example. Right now, I got the call from one of my really good friends on Monday. Woke me up out of a nap, and he's like, hey, I'm in Moab. My technology isn't working as promised at the Airbnb that I'm staying at, and I have a Google Hangout tonight with 10 of my ultimate achievers, really high-level group. I was like, cool, I'll do that. But at my house right now, I have Comcast. The speed of Comcast is a lot like having turtles walk through wires across the world. It just never gets anywhere. So I've tried to do 2 Google Hangouts before with my Comcast system, and what happened was it was like every 4th word was cutting out. I'd be in a weird facial position where it would freeze on the thing. Like, it was a nightmare. So I had to drive to my office, which is 20 minutes. My wife didn't know I'd left because she was taking the kids somewhere. Came home, and where was I? Because I hurried and rushed there. Did the thing. She's texting me, but it's live, so I'm not getting my notifications, as I mentioned before. And then I have to drive home, and that's when I called her and said, I ended up doing this Google Hangout, and I had to go to the office. So I talked to CenturyLink this morning. They told me they would get me the exact same price, but they're going to get me a gig of speed at my house. I was like, okay, same price, but to me, drastically lower cost. Why? I don't have to leave my family to go back to the office to do something. I don't have to pay for the gas. I don't have to, waste the time to be in the car, and yet a lot higher value for the same price. So there's things that have a high price and low cost. For me, cash flow banking has a higher price than term insurance would for me right now. Cash flow insurance, overfunded whole life. Higher price, but lower cost. Why? Because of my tax savings, because of my term insurance savings, because I don't have to buy long-term care in the future, because I'm getting a better interest rate than I was getting in my savings account. Higher price, lower cost, right? A lot more value because I get all these additional benefits, access to my money along the way. No downside, liability protection, bankruptcy protection. So price, value, cost is how I measure the three measures of worth. People that are in the poverty mindset or in a scarcity mindset think only about price. They're overly price conscious. But look, I would never get on an airplane where they said, we have the lowest price tickets on this airplane, simply because we've cut maintenance out and we found the cheapest parts to build it. I don't care how low the price is, the cost is too high, because I would feel that first bit of turbulence. I'd be like, is the wing gonna fall off right now? Are we going to make it, right? I'm already sketchy enough that we're 30,000 feet in the air, let alone if I knew that they did it by scrimping and cutting back, right? The value to me, in some cases, is if I can get those lay down flat seats, man, I'll spend a lot more on the price, because the value is I can get a lot more work done. I can take a nap and show up somewhere refreshed. So the value is high enough. So always look at price, measure it by the economic cost, and then look at the value. So someone can say, ooh, I feel good every time I go to Hawaii, but you know what? The price might be too high because they have to put on a credit card. I don't care how good it is when they go over there and how valuable they feel. If they come back and now they have to make a payment and they don't have an asset, whereas someone else might pay cash for that trip because they've got the money saved up. The price might not matter. It's you individually. So value-based spending is we don't let other people judge or tell us what we spend our money on. We look at it based upon what's important to us. And what you do is you never get into the destructive expenses, right? You never get into destructive expenses that lead towards debt. You look at your lifestyle expenses and always pay cash for those. You remember that? Norm talking about that, right? Lifestyle expenses, pay cash for those, manage those. And then protective expenses are always worth it if you understand the philosophy that Darren shared in the earlier segments, which is peace of mind, transferring risk. The wealthy and affluent always handle their protective expenses. They have asset protection handled, they have estate planning, they have corporate structure, they have insurances to transfer risk, and they have liquidity. People in the middle class or they're really poor underemphasize that and get devastated on a regular basis. So I share all this because for me, having professionals has been that A game changer, right? Like I have an A team of financial professionals. I have a 5,200% or a 50 to 1 or 101 to advantage over everyone else, because Steve Jobs had a handful of people working on the Macintosh, which added billions upon billions of dollars to Apple. Think about how big of a return. It wasn't about more effort. It wasn't about, tweaking something small. It was about having a completely different context. So have that A team of professionals. You're going to have a better performance throughout your entire life because they're going to be able to be there to help you. Then you select the products. That's the 5-step wealth architecture. We went through the 5 levers to create economic independence. You start by boosting your profits, recovering and reclaiming your cash. Then you move into strategically engineering wealth, knowing where you're going, reverse engineering and making sure you have all the pieces there. Then you accelerate investment income. Where is your money currently stagnant and it's accumulating instead of creating cash flow? Maybe you have an IRA. You can move that to a self-directed. You could take what's called a 72T distribution, which means that before 59 and a half, if you're under 59 and a half, you don't have to do this if you're over, but if you're under, you can start taking systematic income out of that without the 10% penalty. So that's an example of accelerating investment income. Taking a dead asset or an asset that's not producing cash flow and turning it into cash flow. That's going to help you get to economic independence. Then scale business revenue. Invest back into yourself, invest back into your business, grow that business, find and hone your skills, give up things that are lesser of you, meaning your lesser things would be things you're incompetent at. If you're doing things you're incompetent at in the name of saving money, you're costing yourself money. It might have a low price because you're doing it, but a high cost because of what it prevents you to do. Things you're competent at are things you can do, but maybe you shouldn't do them because you don't derive energy from it. You know, it makes me think of, anyone ever heard the Chris Rock bit where he's like, you know, he's talking about people saying, I've never been to jail. He's like, you're not supposed to go to jail, you idiot. He's just like saying, you know, sure, I could drive with my feet. It doesn't mean you're supposed to drive with your feet, right? So you're not supposed to drive with your feet. You're not supposed to do things you're competent at because you're not bringing enough value to the world when you're doing things that drain your energy. Now, here's where the trap exists. And I learned this from Dan Sullivan, one of my business coaches. He said the excellence trap is things that you're really good at, better than anyone you know, but you know that there's other people in the world that could do it, and it's not really what your unique gifts are. He says the game changer is when you find what you're most unique in. What is it that you could bring to the table that no one else could bring to the table? What is it you could bring to the table? I've had people come up and say, I thought your energy would start dying off as time went on because you're such an intense individual. No, they didn't say intense, but when you started this whole thing, a lot of energy. Is it dying off? I think I might be unique at delivering finance in a way. I will say Bob Snyder's son, Matt, said, I think Garrett could take any topic and keep me captivated and engaged. Right? So there's some uniqueness there. And I'm not bragging, I'm just kind of saying, like, I found something that I'm better at doing than what I initially started when I started in this business. I used to meet with people one-on-one. That's not what my gift is. One-on-one, I don't have the patience, and the other thing is you're going to hear whatever I'm inventing or developing at the moment, which may not be what you need at that second when you meet with me. I found other people that follow that systems, that like to give those kind of details and actually give breakthrough results rather than me developing something, well, you're my incubator. I'd rather be speaking in front of a room like this. So that's the scale business revenue. Find out what you're unique in, build a team around that, and then really focus on that at the highest level. Then finally make it count. Take some time off, have rejuvenation, have relaxation, spend time with good people, spend time, where you're not just constantly wearing yourself down, and that's part of the make it count. Have more than a financial scorecard. Look at the other scorecards in your life. So then we went into the new rules to get rich. Cash flow over accumulation, focus over diversification, only invest where there's a value proposition, only invest if it still gives you an abundance mindset and doesn't drag you into scarcity. No one individual is an expert in everything. You want to have a team. Everyone has a sole purpose, their values, their abilities, their passions combined for the highest context of living. That's your sole purpose. And if you can find that, that's part of scaling business revenue, right? We talked about your legacy begins with how you live today and the vision that you have now, not just when you die. These are all part of the new rules to get rich. And we covered those throughout the segments. And then we went into the financial health assessment for transferring risk, whether it was car insurance, homeowners insurance, liability, disability, medical insurance, umbrella policies, life insurance, business owner policies, all these ways to transfer risk. And then we emphasized building liquidity. Then we went into money and investing and said, you know what, if you don't have an investing philosophy, someone else will sell you theirs and it's probably got a product attached to it. So we figured out, do you focus on cash flow? Do you know who's behind your investments? We went through and we found that assessment. Yes, no, or uncertain. Now you have an awareness. Now you're elevated to say, I now know what to do to turn my no's into yeses. I've identified it. That's the beginning. Most people don't even have the awareness till the circumstance happens to them and they find themselves in a bad situation. After that, we went into cash flow banking and a crash course around that. How to boost your savings return, how to rig the game in your favor, how to have a never fail you strategy to invest and create velocity, for other opportunities that come your way, but storing your money in a safer place. And then how to, I thought it was really cool, show you how to boost your retirement or future income 20 to 50% because of an existence of a death benefit. Teaching you some of the big company technology that GE uses, or some of the big investors like Warren Buffett, what they've done when they went in and bought investor-owned life insurance. And then we started going into cash flow recovery. We talked about all these different ways, whether it was tax strategies or whether it was refinancing things, or we talked about how to set up different types of corporations, just an overview, just kind of once again, a crash course in that so that it's in your screen of consciousness. It's part of your awareness. You have a higher financial literacy. And that's when we dove into the healthy financial baseline and we went step by step on the foundation, on the safety, and on the growth. And then you worked on classifying your expenses, looking at your income statement, finding what you could do to improve your cash flow, and hopefully have identified your economic independence number. So now we don't just have a fuzzy philosophy or a fuzzy target. You have a lot more specific situation. Look at your monthly income minus your expenses. What's your profit? What are those expenses? Can they be restructured? And what are the quickest ways to build cash flow for you? Is it saving tax? Is it repositioning an asset? Is it turning cash flow on with a dead asset right now? What is going to be the quickest thing? That's what I want you to take action on first. Even if it's not the biggest thing, what's the quickest thing? Just to build momentum, just to release those endorphins, just to prove to yourself that you could do it, just to kind of take a step in the right direction. I think the hardest thing about the gym is getting there. Now, the other day, it was actually when I finished and I nearly died, but I tried to do this maximum 3-minute, how many calories could I burn on an air assault bike, which afterwards I coughed and choked, and then my wife wondered what was wrong with me when I got home, and I coughed throughout the entire night. Maybe pushed it a little bit too hard. I could be competitive at times because the main trainer burned 65 calories, and I'm here to announce I burned 78. Now, my voice is just coming back today fully from that experience. But, you know, just getting a little insight, little peeks into how the life works here. But, you know, the key here is that just you now know if you can get there, just the first step, when you get there to the gym, it's all going to be easier every second later, right? So get there. I just want you to get there. Take that first action. Take that first step. See that first thing. And then what would be the next thing? Then that's when you can maybe take a leap. Here's something that will really boost my cash flow. Here's something that will really get me closer to economic independence. And just buy in and think about it every day. How can I get to economic independence? Because if you get there, man, it's going to be awesome. And it's not if, it's when, as long as you're committed to it. 3 to 7 years, unless you're crazy like Dale Clark. 3 to 7 years otherwise. And it was pretty cool. I played cash flow for kids with my son the other day. And it was amazing how quick he picked up what a good deal or bad deal was when you take the jargon out, right? And hopefully, as much as we have our own words here and as much as we have our own vernacular, hopefully we've taken the jargon out by now where you know what we're talking about when we say velocity. You know what we're talking about when we say economic independence. That's a new language for some people, and now that you've adopted and understand that language, you know how to communicate. And that communication is what leads towards that action, and now you have that awareness. A lot of people get annihilated when they don't have awareness. Want to master your money? Want to figure out the things that you could do to improve your finances? Click here and check out more videos like this on Money Matters.